5. I hope that you're all well. Welcome to lesson 4 of the topic learning. We are very nearly towards the end of the week, so keep going with that same enthusiasm. Today what we're going to be looking at is our retrieval skills. So for this we'll be diving into the first chapter of the book. In order to do this you will need the link, that is the same Well Booked link that you had used yesterday, if you would like to follow along, which I would imagine that the majority of you would. I want you to have a think. What is retrieval? If I was to retrieve a piece of information from the text, what would I be doing? Now, hopefully you're fairly confident with that answer. If I was to retrieve a piece of information from the text, I would simply pick it out from the text. I would find it within whatever it is that I am reading. Fair bit of work on our retrieval skills just before the schools closed. And we all got really good at it. Now, the reason that I want to go back to it is to make sure we are still as confident with those skills as we had been. So we'd discussed a couple of strategies for finding and retrieving information from the text. The first thing that I would ask you is, what word from that question are you actually going to skim and scan for? What is that question actually about? And then we would go on to, whereabouts in the text is that answer likely to be? Now you should create a picture in your mind about what happens in the text. So first they might go into the woods, next they might find a bear, and then lastly they might run away. So if we're asking for a description of the woods, it's likely to be at the beginning because that's when they're first in the woods. Lastly, I would like you to think, how am I going to search for the word? Now, this is completely dependent on you as a learner. Some of you might skim and scan just for that first letter of the word. Some of you might skim and scan for the shape of the word. It's very much dependent on how you learn. After skimming and scanning through the text for that word, you can't find it. What I would suggest doing is finding some synonyms. Now, synonyms are words that mean exactly the same as each other. So, for example, happy and joyful. And then you might want to repeat steps 1, 2, and 3 and skim and scan for those words there. So the question here says, what type of tree is mentioned in the extract? Now, I just want us to have a really quick think about that question first of all. That question is 1 mark. So how many pieces of information do you think that you need to come up with in your answer? And hopefully you've said just 1. If it was a 2-mark question, that would be 2 pieces of information. And a 3-mark question would be your point, your evidence, and your explanation. And you would have to do that twice to get all of those 3 marks. I also want us to think about the word extract. I purposefully put that in there because I know that it slips quite a few of you up. The word extract simply means the text. So what type of tree is mentioned in the text or in this part of the story? Hopefully now you're thinking about which word you would skim and scan for in this text. What actually is it asking you to find? Now, if you're struggling with that, I would simply go through the question word for word. So would I skim and scan for the word what? No. Type? No. Of? No. Tree? Aha, yes, it's asking me about the tree. So have a think when you're reading through the text. He waited, hidden by dusk and the garden bushes against the bark of an oak tree, watching. The spot gave him full view of the house and gravel driveway. So, what type of tree is mentioned in the extract? Hopefully you've all got that fairly easily. It is an oak tree. I'm going to read chapter 1 of the book. I'm more than happy if you would like to skip me on because you would like to read this independently yourself using the link that is in the home learning sheet, or if you would like to follow on using that link, or if you would simply like to listen to me. Remember about that challenge level, think about what you should be doing as a learner. Boy. He waited, hidden by dusk and the garden bushes against the bark of an oak tree, watching. The spot gave him full view of the house and gravel driveway. Worrying about being seen felt weird. Perfect had been alive with the news of Dr. Eugene Brown's arrival for weeks. The doctor would help. Boy knew it, more than he'd ever known anything. He just had to get to the man before he changed. As night closed in, George and Edward Archer strode by and mounted the stone steps to the house. The place lit up, and Boy watched them move around inside. Suddenly, light darted across the grass by his feet, and Boy pulled back further into the shadows. A silver car crunched along the driveway towards him and stopped. His heartbeat quickened. The engine purred to silence. The large door of the house opened, and the Archer twins stood silhouetted in the light from the hallway. As Boy watched, statue still, a shiver danced down his spine. A man got out the driver's seat, a woman from the passenger seat. He hadn't imagined the doctor would have company. The woman looked nervous, staring across the roof of the car at the man. He smiled awkwardly at her, and then walked towards the twins, greeted them with a handshake. The woman followed, and the four of them disappeared inside. Boy ventured a little out of the shadows, stopping short as the doctor called, "Violet, come in from the car, pet. It's chilly out there." The back door of the car opened a little, then quickly slammed shut as the breeze rustled the leaves above him. Boy held his breath and pulled back into hiding. The car door swung open again, and this time a small frightened girl dashed out of the gravel towards the house. The boy couldn't help laughing. She sped up, jumped the steps, and rushed through the front door, banging it shut behind her, and plunged the yard back into darkness. The car door hung open, and Boy pushed it shut as he edged closer to the kitchen window. He caught sight of the girl sliding down into the room. He sat down by the steps to wait. Night rolled on. The watchers would be patrolling soon, and he couldn't be caught outside the walls again. He'd come back in the morning, early, and speak to the doctor then. He took one last look into the window. The girl sat between her mum and dad. A proper family. Something inside him stung as he thumbed the rub-worn note in his pocket. We're going to go through the questions one by one. Don't forget to look out for how many marks it's worth, because that will tell you how many pieces of information you will need to find from the text. I will start off by helping you out with question number 1, and then you will be expected to look through the rest of the questions a little bit more independently. Question number 1. What colour was the car? So don't forget your steps that we've spoken about to do with how to retrieve something. Step number 1, which word are you going to skim and scan for? What is the question talking about? Well, it's talking about the car. And then you would need to think, whereabouts in the text does it start talking about the car? Well, it's pretty soon. So whereabouts are you going to look? And how are you going to look for the word? Remember, it depends on what kind of learner you are. Are you going to look for the C in the car, or are you going to look for the shape of that word? What verbs are used to describe how George and Edward entered the house? Have a think, what is a verb? If you're struggling, you might need to do a little bit of research on that. I'm not going to help you too much on this, though. Question number 3. Why did Boy pull back into the shadows? Remember, if something is in quotation marks, it means that it's taken directly from the text. I've not changed it at all. That should make skimming and scanning for this question quite easy. Question number 4. Why did Violet's dad ask her to come in from the car? And that's 1 mark again. Question number 5. Find and copy one adjective that is used to describe Violet when she left the car. Question number 6. Who did Boy say would be patrolling soon? If you're unsure what the word patrolling means, that's another word for guarding. So keeping something safe and guarding it. Question number 7. What did Boy have in his pocket? And your 8th and final question is find and copy 2 phrases that tell you what time of day it is. You've already had a find and copy question, hopefully, and go back and check. In that question, you have simply taken that direct quote from the text. You have not changed it at all. If you've changed it, you will not get any mark, even though your answers might be right. Great skimming and scanning year 5. I'm really excited to see how you've got on and whether or not those marks have tripped you up, and especially whether that find and copy part of the question has tripped you up as well. Please send your answers through to the email so that we can have a little look and feed some things back to you. And have a wonderful rest of your day.